Hi, it's DIY Guy 123 here, and we have another how-to video. I've got a 14-foot aluminum john boat, and it's a riveted boat. And rivets are strong, but over time they can leak. And in fact, I've got one rivet that's it's missing. So it was a rivet between one of the ribs and the bottom plate, and it's right here. And so what happened was I put the boat in the water for the first time of the season and noticed that it was filling up, and very quickly I took the flooring up and had a look. And when I say filling up, I mean it weeped, really, or a bit more than that, but it wasn't like the boat was going to sink. Anyway, and I could see very clearly leaking. There's a low part here, and then a high part, and then a low part. And it was leaking in both low parts. Water was seeping out away from the rib. And also I saw a little, very minor weep out here at this high part. So logic would suggest that you know, could be one of these four rivets. Now, when it comes to diagnosing the problem, a couple of ways you can diagnose a leaky boat. One is to have the hull of the boat absolutely dry on the inside, and then you put it in the water, and then you look for where leaks are coming in. But that is often challenging on a boat that has ribs, because where does it leak? It leaks under the ribs almost always, and you can't see exactly where it's coming in. So another way is to have the bottom of the boat completely dry and not fill the boat, but I took, well, a stew pot full of water, probably 5 liters of water, and brought it out here and just drizzled it over the approximate location that I suspected the leak was. When I first launched the boat, of course, that was the first method I talked about, where the boat was inside was dry, and so I had a general idea where it was leaking. But to prove which rivet hole or whatever it was coming out, I actually did it from the other way, and I put water inside the boat. So that worked beautifully. I was easily able to tell where it was leaking, and I hope that you're able to do the same. And we looked underneath, and these front rivets looked good. In fact, the top of the rivet must have come off, and somebody aluminum welded this. And I don't really think there was much problem with the leak there, but just to rule it out, I did reset those rivets. And you do that by holding a big heavy piece of steel on one end of the rivet, and then somebody else, you need 2 people, gets in the bottom of the boat, and they'll whack the bottom part of the rivet with a hammer, and it just kind of resets the rivet and will compress the length of the rivet and make it slightly wider. And if there was any problem with weeping, there won't be now. But on this side, it's a different story. This is the rivet that I could see on the top, but the bottom part was broken and missing. What's interesting, and after looking this over, I figured out what was going on. It was really puzzling, because when we first put the boat in, there was a leak, and it leaked pretty quickly. But after the initial liter or so that leaked in, we were out in the boat, and it leaked in like the first 2 minutes. After that first 2 minutes, we took off with the boat, we went out, we were in the river for like 2.5 hours, and it really didn't leak a lot more. And so I couldn't quite figure it out. I thought, well, maybe the material around wherever the leak was, at that point I didn't know where it was kind of a porous, soft material, and as it got wet, it swelled and sealed itself. But that's not what happened. Here's the decking. The decking is all attached to a piece of strapping, okay? And that piece of strapping sits on this side of the rib. There's a rib, and this is all one piece, right? So the decking rested on there. And in fact, in that spot where I've got a bolt, there was half a rivet. The rivet with the half on the inside of the boat was there. Just the head on the rivet on the bottom of the boat on the outside was missing. So this strapping pushed down on the head of that rivet when I was sitting on the chair, the driver's chair. But when I was launching the boat, I was up at the front, fooling around with the winch and all that stuff. So I just find that fascinating that, you know, it leaked a lot when I first got on the boat, and then not much after we were driving, and that's the reason. So this rivet really didn't do anything to hold the rib to the bottom. And so I tapped the old rivet out, so it just popped up. And ideally you'd get an aluminum rivet and reset it. But in a jam, there's an easier way. And frankly, it's going to probably survive the life of the boat without any problem. I've got a stainless nut here that's slightly smaller than the hole where the rivet came out, and stainless washers and double nuts. So what you want is on the bottom of the boat where it's in the water, you don't want anything to snag or catch. And so what we'll see from the bottom is literally just this. Now, I know there is a rough edge there, but it's going to be up in the, you know, what's high from the bottom, what's high from the top of the boat right here is actually low from your view underneath of the boat. So it's actually not going to drag on anything. And plus, I'm going to use a very small amount of gasket maker. It's just basically a sealant, and it will prevent any water from passing through. I'm going to put sealant between the washer and the head of the bolt, and then I'm going to put some sealant on the top of the washer, and then I'm going to stick it up into the bottom of the hull, and then from the top I'm going to put sealant on both sides of this washer and put it on the top of the bolt, and then I'm going to put sealant on this nut, and then I'm going to put sealant on this second nut. So I'll have a double nut and it'll be locked, and then I will use the grinder to cut the top of the bolt off so it doesn't protrude any higher than it should be inside the boat. So that's how we're going to do it. Okay, so here we are. We've got our stainless steel nut and washer and bolt and everything on here all nice and tight. I've got it double nutted so it's not going to loosen up. And I'm actually going to take a air cut-off saw, this guy, and just cut the top of that bolt off that's protruding up there, because it just doesn't need to be there, and it will interfere with my wooden deck that I have here. I actually have done this grinding in a couple stages because I don't want to heat that bolt up so much while I'm grinding it off that it impacts the silicone. I don't want it to melt or burn that silicone. It's not quite hard yet, and anyway, I'm not in a hurry, so I've done it in a couple stages, and I'll just finish it off here in a third stage after that's cooled down sufficiently. So there's the new ground down bolt, and it looks pretty good. It's not sharp. Even if the deck was up and you stepped on that with your bare foot, you wouldn't hurt yourself. So the top is all done. I will actually mark it on the strapping and notch that out so that weight is not on that nut, but even if it was there, I don't think it would matter. And then underneath, you can see where someone had patched. They put body filler or something over, I don't even know what it is, some kind of hard stuff over top of where the rivets, the two rivets that were impacted were. And again, this is the one that was missing the rivet head on the bottom of the boat. So I just ground that off. You can't really see, but I ground it down with a grinder right down to the bare metal. And then I had a helper put their finger over the hole in the bottom of the boat. And then from the top of the boat, I pumped sealant into the hole, which made it spread out between the shell of the boat and the rib. So I know that there's sealant all around that interface. And then we put the bolt through, and I put sealant on both sides of the washer and both sides of and on one side of the nut, just like I talked about, and tighten it in. I had somebody hold the head from down below, the head of the bolt, and then I tightened it up top, and so that's it. I may, in fact, just put a little blob of silicone over this, not for sealant purposes, but just so that that head doesn't catch any weeds or anything like that. Anyway, that's it.